Welcome to Beyond the Quit. I am your host, IFBB Pro, Pete Hoggabook. And remember, Beyond the Quit. Beyond the Quit is for those who refuses to give up. And what that means is we all have those seasons. We have those times where we think we have it all figured out, but we don't. And then we feel rejected, we feel sad, and we want to stop. So this podcast will have guests that have gone through those probably the exact same thing. I hope you do grab something from this specific guest. This is Eddy Foley. Eddy, how you doing?
I'm great. Pete, how about yourself?
I'm doing great. Eddy, he's a great friend of mine. I've known Eddy for 25 years and just somebody that I've always respected very highly. Eddy, on my podcast, I like to ask one moment in your life that you felt like giving up or quitting, but you didn't.
Well, first off, I'm going to send that respect right back at you. Love you, brother.
Love you, man.
One moment where I could have quit but didn't, I think I need to start with a little background. I grew up in a family where mediocre was okay. Neither of my parents graduated high school. None of my grandparents graduated high school. To say I grew up poor would be a fair statement. And there's an old saying, you don't need to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than the people next to you. So being one of 5 siblings, my B's and C's and the occasional D were much better than their D's and F's. So to say I was a very average student would be a fair statement. So I would say there was a lot of quit in me growing up, and it wasn't until much later in life when I joined the Marine Corps where I learned that wasn't an option anymore. I remember one night very clearly laying in bed, and I don't know, some of your viewers may know this, the Marine Corps Recruit Depot out in San Diego sits right next to the flight line of San Diego International Airport. And where your bunks sit, when you go to bed at night, you are laying there watching airplanes take off and fly to freedom. And I remember a night, probably about 2 weeks into boot camp, I'll admit this, I was laying there crying in bed, wondering what I had done. Did I make the right decision? And looking at that fence going, that's not that big of a fence. I could jump that fence and get to freedom. And almost immediately, I had the feeling that if you quit this, you're going to quit everything for the rest of your life. And I made a decision that day that I was going to be the best Marine that there's ever been. Now, obviously, I fell short of that, but that was the moment when I could have quit. It would have been very difficult, but I could have quit, and I decided this is what changes my life. And that's the whole reason I joined in the first place.
Wow, that's powerful, man. I don't think I knew that. Thanks for sharing that, Eddy.
I
And I
don't know
think
that I've ever told it.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'm honored, and my guests will be honored as well. Definitely a pleasure having you. We're going to do deep dives into who you are. Remember, everybody, you can find Beyond the Quit podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and of course, YouTube. So, Eddy, growing up, second out of there's 5 brothers and sisters. Is that right?
Yeah, 5 out of my dad's second marriage and 4 out of my dad's first marriage. So there was 9 of us
Wow.
total.
So you have half siblings too.
I do. I don't know them very well,
Okay.
but yes, 5 siblings out of my dad's second marriage.
Okay. So what did responsibility look like to you? You kind of gave us a taste of it in the beginning and the opening of this, but can you kind of
Sure.
deep dive in that?
Yeah, so my parents both worked, didn't make a whole lot of money, but they both worked. So I had a sister that really didn't, I would say, grow up until later in life. She was out doing things she shouldn't have been doing, which left me to kind of make sure the family gets fed. And I learned to cook at a young age. I watched my mom. Thank God I did. I learned all these recipes that I cherish to this day. You know, when I'm missing mom, I make biscuits and gravy on a Sunday morning, and I make her chicken and dumplings, those kind of things. So things that maybe I didn't realize what I was learning at the time, you know, I cherish now.
Wow. Okay. Is that now meaning today, or was this last 10 years, 5 years?
I would say since the passing of my mom and dad, since, you know, I lost my dad about 15 years ago and my mom 10 years ago. So yeah, I would say the last 10 years.
I'm sorry about that. You know, I lost my dad 10 years ago, my mom 30 years ago, but I hear you, man. So what's a moment in your childhood that helped shape you? And what I mean by that is, you know, you said you grew up mediocre, or mediocrity was kind of a thing in the household, if I heard you correctly. But
It was.
in you?
My father was big into wrestling, professional wrestling, which means he put all of his boys into wrestling. And me being the oldest, when he decided to do that, I got a very late start into it. I graduated high school at 155 pounds. To say that I was skinny is an understatement. I'm a little bit higher than that now. My little brother was 3 or 4 when he started wrestling, and I was probably 9. And when I started wrestling, I was, 6 years behind those kids that I was wrestling and got my butt kicked on a regular basis. So we would all go to wrestling meets, USA Wrestling at the time, and the 3 boys would wrestle. My youngest brother would walk out of there with first place every week, and I would be out after 2 matches. This continued until junior high when I joined the junior high wrestling team, and the butt kickings continued. And the wrestling coach, who happened to be a relative, suggested that I run track in the spring to get my cardio up. So I ran track my 7th grade year and went undefeated in the 2 mile, won quite a few of the mile races, and I found out I was a pretty good distance runner. Never wrestled again. So I would say that was one moment that kind of changed the trajectory of my life, even though I didn't realize it at the time. No, quitting one thing led me down the path of another that kind of shaped my life.
That's where I was going to lead to. And you had no idea that was going to happen, obviously,
No clue. No
until
clue.
the suggestion to run to get in shape, up your cardio. Wow, that's awesome. So I love hearing that because I've known you as a runner, right? I mean, that's one thing that we bonded over back in the day.
Absolutely.
And how you got into it is very interesting. Wrestling was. But you're speaking about your father. Your father was into wrestling, professional wrestling, you said?
Yeah, we bought a satellite dish. We were one of those fans, even though we didn't have a whole lot of money. We had one of those massive satellite dishes in our backyard, so he could watch fake wrestling growing up and
Dude,
Hulk
nobody
Hogan
could have
and
said you did not think it was fake.
right. I mean, they were bleeding for real.
Yeah, dude. They were.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But your dad was your biggest influence, Korean war vet.
Yep. Korean War vet. He joined at 17.
Mm.
With he forged my grandfather's signature to go down and join. Doesn't really talk about it a whole lot. I think it left a mark on him long term. A lot of physical ailments, but nothing that he really talked about. But definitely had it made a mark on me later when I decided to join the Marine.
Now, was that something that influenced you because of him? Because that was kind of like my next question. Like, was it him being a war vet and a military man? Did that influence you, or was there something like a nugget that he gave you back in the day where you're like, whatever? But then today or the last 10, 15 years, you're like, man, my dad taught me that. He talked to me about that
Sure,
at a young.
sure. So my dad was 101st Airborne. Anytime we camped, we were camping like we were in the military. It was roughing it. It was never posh camping. We literally put up a teepee. We would forage for our food. We would have a fire, and we would camp in the middle of winter in Michigan.
What?
So I almost feel like I've been in the Marine Corps since I was 8, 9 years old. He was preparing me for that. I think the reason I joined the Marine Corps was an opportunity for me to one up dad.
Hmm.
Not saying that one branch is better than the other, but the Marines is better than the Army.
Was he proud of you, Eddie, when you joined?
He was absolutely proud. There was a gleam in his eye when I came home from boot camp with that uniform on.
So, Marine Corps. Before that, you were in college. How'd you get? What prompted you to get
Yeah,
into school?
sure. So, kind of like I said before, my family, college was never on the radar. It was never something that I was told that I need to aspire to do. It was just get through high school as best you can and find a good job and, support your family. That was the goal, and that was the teaching from my family. It wasn't until a good friend of mine, Nate Lewis, moved to South Haven my freshman year in high school. They were from Sandusky, Michigan, and his family moved over to South Haven. Nate and Chris Lewis, they were twins, and they were both distance runners as well. And I became very good friends with them and their family. They kind of took me in as their fourth son. And that was my first real experience of seeing success and seeing that there is more to life than working at a factory. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is more if you aspire to do it. And they were the first to start asking me, well, what are your plans? Where are you going to do? Eddie, you could run in college. Have you ever thought about that? And I truly hadn't. and then had a little bit of success in high school, I would say, and started getting those scholarship offers come in sophomore, junior year, and started thinking, whoa, this may be a possibility. I could go to college and run. And I was being heavily recruited by Ferris State. Coach Wood, he came to a lot of the meets. He spent a lot of time really recruiting me. I would have stepped onto the track as their number one 800-meter runner, and he wanted me bad. I went on my official visit. Everything was amazing. And I asked him, what's your offer? And Coach Wood looked at me right in the eye and said, well, I don't give freshmen scholarships. Come
Wow.
here, earn it, and we'll talk about it your sophomore year. I was also being recruited by another school, Tri-State University, which is now Trine in Angola, Indiana. And that coach was also recruiting me pretty heavy. So I went on a visit. He told me he was going to give me 3-quarter ride to come and run cross-country track and indoor track. And that amounted to about $15,000 of the $20,000 it would cost to go there. And Ferris was about 5,000 being an in-state school, but my ego would not let me go to that school. It was the same amount of money, but because Ferris wasn't offering me a scholarship and the school I didn't want to was, my ego drove me to Tri-State. And I shouldn't have gone.
Why do you say that? Why do you say you shouldn't have gone?
I think there was a lot of I was there for the wrong reasons. I was there because I chased 3-quarter scholarship that isn't real money. I was there because I was told I should be. I was told you're good enough for a scholarship, go get it. Where I should have gone to Ferris, the coach that I loved, that wanted me, that recruited me heavily, and earned that scholarship my sophomore year. I think my life would have had a different path if I would have made that decision back then.
So that's one thing you would take back if you could.
I don't know that I would, Pete. I think, everything that I've done in my life has me here sitting, talking to you and married to my wonderful wife and the father of my awesome 26-year-old son. I wouldn't change a thing.
Much respect to that. You got a scholarship, 3-quarter scholarship. Tri-State wasn't the
Mhm.
school you wanted to go to, but you went there.
I did. So, yeah,
How'd
got
that go?
got to campus, started running. I was about their third or fourth runner. For those that don't know, cross country is top 5 score, top 7 are varsity. So I stepped on the course scoring for them, and the coach just rode me like a rented mule. Nothing I could do was good enough. He MF'd me every chance he get. I would be outrunning his juniors and seniors, and just, I don't know. Maybe he saw something in me that I didn't know was there at the time, and that's what he was trying to extract. But the way he did it, I don't know that I was ready for it.
So what happened then? How did your freshman year go?
Sure. So showed up to cross country. Hell week was 2 weeks. Basically, those are our 2-a-days for cross country. We're running 10, 12 miles in the morning, 5 to 6 miles in the afternoon. Occasional speed worked in there, and they're just trying to see, is everybody that we thought who they are, and are they going to make it? I went to a party at the end of Hell Week at one of the fraternities. And I never drank in high school, not a drop. I just thought that was something that athletes didn't do. I showed up, and the All-American on the team the last 2 years walked up to me and said, Foley, where's your beer? And I said, oh, I don't drink. Athletes don't drink. And he laughed, went to the bar, grabbed 2 beers, and handed me 2 beers and said, I don't want to see either hand empty the rest of the night. So I kind of sipped on them and, pretended I was drinking. And over the course of the next 6 months or so, pretending to drink became drinking quite heavily. And I was not the best student. I wasn't a good student in high school. Not sure why I thought I'd be a good student in college, not changing anything and adding alcohol to the mix. Drank quite a bit, wasn't going to class. My grades were awful, and I was on academic probation. I got in an altercation with the senior on the team one night drinking, and the coach sided with the senior as he should have. And he let me know that I would not be getting a scholarship to come back the next year. So that was 2 weeks before the end of my freshman year. I packed up, went home, was sitting at home early June, and there's no cell phones back then. My home phone call rang, and I don't know how this recruiter knew that I was even there. I'd been gone for 9 months at school, and he called and asked to speak to me and said, Mr. Foley, what are you doing next fall? And I said, very funny you should ask. I have no idea. He said, well, can I buy you lunch? And I said, sure. So he picked me up the next day with a young man who was home on recruiter's assistance from London, England.
Okay.
Told me that he wore a 3-piece suit to work every day. They took a different route to kind of keep the terrorists off their trail. A bulletproof vest and a 9 mil under his jacket. And I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. I said, I want to do that. And he said, well, did you take the ASVAB in high school? And military was never on my radar either, just like cross country wasn't. So I said, no. He said, well, I'm going to need you to go to Lansing. I'll put you up in a hotel overnight. They're going to do a couple tests on you and you'll take the ASVAB and we'll see if what I can even do for you. So about a week later, I told my mom, came home from that meal. I told my mom that, I'm just going to go take it and explore some options. And she said, well, what about school? And I said, well, school's always an option, but I just want to see. And so went to Lansing, took the ASVAB, did my physical, and we were all just kind of sitting around. Next thing I know, we're all marched into this room in the Capitol, and the Secretary of State walks in, and we're all standing on these footprints, and the Secretary of State says, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly
Dang.
swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the... And I paused for a second. I'm like, whoa, what is happening?
Right.
And I thought for 2 seconds and raised my right hand and gave the oath of office and
Wow.
joined the Marine
No
Corps
way.
right then. Yeah.
What did you think those 2 seconds? What was going through your mind? Please tell me.
Can I cuss?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? Absolutely.
You're thinking something else, but okay, I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my recruiter picked me up. I said, you SOB, you didn't tell me I was joining today. He goes, well, did you do it? I said, yeah, I did it. He goes, well, good. And I went home. I told my mom that I had joined, and she smacked me as hard as she could across the face. And she said, what about college? And I said, Mom, college will always be there. And she was upset. One thing I'm a little embarrassed about, both my parents died not knowing that I had lost my scholarship. I never told them that. I just told them that I wanted to
Really?
join the Marine Corps. Yeah. Yeah.
Eddie, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So does that do anything
Again,
to you?
it used to. I've come to peace with it now. I think the ends justified the means. Again, it has me sitting here where I am in life talking to you. But no, at the time I was not proud of it and
Well,
probably should have told them.
like, I mean, you're prideful and you respected them and you didn't want to definitely didn't want to hurt your mom. But
Could be.
like you said, look at you now. So I get that. So ambition, right? I mean, you're in the Marine Corps now. I mean, take the oath. You wake up, you're in barracks, right? Or you're wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Doing boot camp, I'm assuming. So your
Yeah.
mind's probably going a million miles a minute, I'm assuming. Where are you at?
Yeah.
Right at that.
So you get to San Diego. If you've ever watched Full Metal Jacket, the first half of Full Metal Jacket, that's exactly what Marine Corps boot camp is. They did not exaggerate a bit. Despite what they tell you, they do put their hands on you. I was put inside a Foot Locker once by a drill instructor. I wanted to impress him, so I got right back up and stood in front of him again, and he put me back in it a little more forcefully the second time, and I realized that he wanted me to stay there, so I stayed there till he told me to get out. And that's really what boot camp was.
Wow.
That sums up boot camp.
Wow.
But yeah, so boot camp is 3 months long. It's 3 different phases. There's a first phase where you can do nothing right. Second phase where you learn the rifle range and you start to learn what it means to be a Marine. And the third phase they call the polishing phase. They've broken you down and now they're rebuilding you into the man and the Marine they want you to be.
And it goes like that for all Marines, no matter what? That's the process?
Goes like that for all Marines, no matter what.
So you're in the Marine Corps, which arguably is the toughest in the military world. This is what you see. This is what you hear. So you talk about Full Metal Jacket. You talk about boot camp. I've seen that movie probably 5 times, and that's legit. That's very intense.
Yes.
But sounded like you excelled in the military, specifically in the Marines. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So again, after that night, after about 2 weeks, when I made the decision, I'm not going to quit this. I'm going to excel. I'm going to be the best Marine that I can possibly be. I had an advantage over, I would say, just about everybody in my class. There was 74 Marines in my boot camp. Me being a distance runner, there's a lot of physical activity and a lot of things that having excellent cardio bodes well to. So I kind of like Forrest Gump. I just excelled in the Marine Corps because I could follow orders. I could run fast. I didn't, I think the key of boot camp is to not get noticed until the end and then get noticed for the right reasons. And that
Okay.
was one thing my recruiter told me before I left, and that's what I tried my best to do. And so in that third phase where they were polishing, I really gave it my all. There's a thing called the physical fitness test, the PFT. You do it after boot camp as well. You do it throughout the time you're in the Marine Corps. It consists of the max number of dead hang pull-ups you can do, the max number of sit-ups you can do in 2 minutes, and a 3-mile run. To score perfect on all three, you have to do the 3-mile run in 18 minutes, the sit-ups 80 in 2 minutes, and the
Sure.
pull-ups is 20. I was the company Ironman, doing 38 pull-ups,
Wow.
123 sit-ups, I think, and my 3-mile run time was mid 16s, 16:30 something, I think, which wasn't. Yeah, I was running 15s in college, so to run a 16th, I was actually in better shape before I went to boot camp.
I was literally going to say that it's like 16 for you to do that in intervals, probably in practice. But, you know, yet you look like you're an Iron Man, right? You're an Iron Man there. It's mad respect.
Yeah,
Um,
and that
more.
earned me my first meritorious promotion.
Okay. What was that? What does that mean to everybody?
So you can be promoted two ways in the military, either time in service and time in grade. So you accumulate points over time, and if you just do everything you're supposed to do and stay in long enough and they need the next position, you'll get promoted. If you can circumvent that time with a meritorious promotion, you can either be put in for it, or they do like boards, a meritorious board where every company will put one person forward as their honoree, and you compete against each other for that promotion. And I was promoted 4 times. So private, PFC, Lance Corporal, Corporal, and Sergeant. I left as a sergeant, and 3 of my 4 promotions are meritorious. So I was a sergeant at a little over 3 years in the Marine.
So would you say the running helped? I always go back to how you said mediocrity. You brought that up. So turn the page to the scholarship athlete. You were losing the scholarship, but yet feel like kind of a second chance for you. You think?
Yeah, running definitely helped me with that, just because being physically fit, it's not just the 3-mile run. There's also obstacle courses, which require, you know, pretty good physical abilities. I told you my dad had pretty much had me in the Marine Corps since I was 6. So we were doing stupid things like climbing trees and crossing rivers and all of that stuff my entire life. So the Marine Corps just kind of clicked for me, and I did very well in it. And not only that, there's appearance. Do you iron your uniform every day? Do you shine your boots? What's your attitude like? Those are the things that kept me advancing in the Marine Corps. And that's when it kind of clicked with me that, okay, so if you put in effort, you show up every day, you do your best, it equates to position and money, which all those promotions were. And that has really shaped my life ever since.
So Eddie, another question about being in the Marines. What did that teach you about confidence or fear, pressure, how you handle them? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I would say one thing that the Marines definitely taught me about fear is fear does not provide any value to you whatsoever. Fear causes hesitation, and in the most severe cases, fear could lead to death if you hesitate. So the Marine Corps, good, right, wrong, or indifferent, teaches everyone to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and really kind of removes that fear from your life. It's definitely been a positive. I don't, when I moved into the dating world, I wasn't scared to talk to anybody. Again, more confidence than maybe I should have had, but it's definitely worked its way into the business world as well. Any interview I go on, I know I'm going to get that offer before I even walk out of the interview.
Love it, man.
When you go into an interview expecting an offer and just knowing that you're going to get it, you perform differently.
That's right.
You can tell the people that are kind of mousy and timid and should I even be applying? Those kind of people you don't hire. The person that walks in with the confidence, knowing that you would be crazy not to hire me, that's the people you want.
I liked it. And I like that segue. So you've been in printing industry, you've been in the automotive industry, and most currently directing quality at very high levels, executive role. How did you keep reinventing yourself? How did you keep changing and being kind of a chameleon in a sense?
Well, that's a very good question. I would say, well, my first job out of the military was selling trailer homes like I grew up in. I learned sales, which is a extremely valuable tool. As you know, it's something you use the rest of your life. A sale is being made every day. Either somebody's selling you something or you're selling someone else something. It could be as simple as asking a girl on a date. You're using sales, or, asking a company to close a multi-million dollar deal with you. That's sales, right? And trust you with it. So sold trailer homes for a little bit, started selling cars at Tompkinson Dodge BMW, where I had the pleasure of meeting you,
Yeah.
and did that for about a year. And then my ex-wife's uncle offered me a job at a printing company not far from where we lived. When I got out of the military, we went to live with my ex-wife, close to her family, thinking that we needed that kind of support. So we moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I got a job hanging big 3,000-pound rolls of paper off the front end of the press and inspecting them off the back end of the press. Worked my way up to press operator, and then a bit into a quality tech job. And that was where I first got my feet wet in quality.
Okay.
As far as reinventing myself, quality is quality. Whether you're quality on a cereal box or quality on an airplane, everything has a print, everything has a specification, and everything has a tolerance. It's just managing those and managing the customer and managing the customer's expectation. When I don't know how much you want to dive into my role in quality, but my job as in quality, you are the voice of your customer within your facility, no matter what that is you're doing, right? Operations is always, we got to get 400 widgets out today or it's the end of the world, right? And my job is to make sure that we get 400 good widgets out today. And if that means that we only send 395 widgets and protect that customer, that's what we do. That's my job. And sometimes 5 of those widgets, 3 of them will probably work. And that's the magic of knowing that fit, form, and function for the customer, and, going to the customer. I'm a huge fan of that. If you, no matter what business you're in, if you haven't gone to your customer to see how they use you, you need to do that. You need to see what's important to them. You need to see what makes them tick,
Yeah.
what they're passionate about, what their operators struggle with. And if you can fix that, then you can make those hard decisions that I can then tell the operations director, you absolutely cannot ship those parts. That will be a rejection. That will be a warranty field claim. We cannot do that.
So was that a leadership, something you learned on the fly, or is that something you learned back in when you were rolling the 3,000-pound rolls of paper up?
Sure. I can think of one very specific. We were having an issue with a die. It would cut the paper and make the box. And it was putting a little perforation where on the cereal box where you kind of open it and put the tab in, it was cutting too deep. And I made the call without knowing what the customer could or could not use, which resulted in a very large dollar amount rejection. Ever since then, I've learned go see the customer, go see their process, and most importantly, talk to the operators on the floor. They're the ones that are going to give you that tribal knowledge of what will work and what will not.
I like that. I like that. So you train engineers who are now quality managers, correct? So would you say that your mentorship helped shape them, or do you have a template of what that should be if you have somebody raw, engineer, or Pete Hoggabook, right? You have Pete Hoggabook, he wants to be a quality engineer. You've already had those roles. You want to mentor this person. Does it look differently for Eddy Foley, or it depends on the person? Can you walk me through that?
So what I'm looking for in the next quality manager, or maybe my replacement as the next quality director, I'm a big believer that that's part of your job, no matter what role you're in. Part of your job is finding your replacement. You can't get promoted if you don't have somebody that you can say to your boss, look, I've got somebody ready. They've been ready. They're ready for a year, and I think we should give it to them. It makes it a lot easier to promote you if you're already backfilled. What I look for in those people, I hire attitude. I can teach the ABCs of doing the job. That's the easy part. I want somebody that's going to come in and do the things that require no talent whatsoever. Are they going to be there early? Are they going to stay there late if they didn't get it done? Are they going to come ask the right questions? Ask for that help, not just blow it off and not do it. I had a very good quality manager when I was a quality engineer that I didn't know it at the time what he was doing. He was kind of throwing me to the wolves and, making me do some audits with the customer, go on customer visits that maybe I thought he should have been doing. And I resented him a little bit for it. I've since talked to Alex and let him know how much I appreciate what he was doing. But I've taken that leadership style on. I put as much pressure on my people as they can handle. And I want to see them grow. And I give them all the tools, I give them all the support. But whenever you have a chance to let someone grow and let them, no matter their education, no matter what they did before, no matter what they think they could do, if you see that potential in them, develop it. One of the things I'm most proud of is 3 quality engineers that worked for me as a quality manager are now quality managers. And I hope that I had something to do with that.
Sure. That's not a coincidence if there's 3 of them for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. So you fixed a lot of relationships in the business world, right? I don't know if it's recent, but definitely with Ford, which is a big 3. So tell me about fixing relationships in terms of like when trust is broken. So a client doesn't trust company A anymore. They send an Eddy Foley to fix that relationship. What does that look like? What is
First and foremost, transparency. That's what the customer's looking for. They don't want somebody that's trying to blow smoke up their behind. Tell them, what the issue is. Here's the what. Here's my why. This is how I'm going to do it, and then deliver on those what you say you're going to do. It's that simple. I use a little trick. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but anytime I want somebody to trust what I'm saying, I start with, I probably shouldn't be telling you this. But, it's something I would have told them anyway, and it's something that, isn't a violation. I'm
I
not
like
putting my company at risk in any way, but they feel like, oh, I'm getting inside information that somebody else wouldn't have given me. So
still
please,
stutter and say they're like, this dude has no idea what he's talking about. Never mind. So I gotta practice. I gotta practice by myself.
I
You
know
were
you better
promised a
than that.
promotion. I don't know if this was at where you're currently at, but you were promised a promotion. Probably not because you left that job because you never got that promotion. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So the job previous that I was at, I was a quality manager at a company where I was very happy, at a solid team. And that quality manager that developed me and left the company where I was promoted into was now a plant manager at another company. And he had an issue where my predecessor had lied to the customer, which was Ford, and created a very big issue. Ended up being a multi-million-dollar recall. I was brought in to fix that relationship and get Q1 in the facility. So Q1 is Ford's. I don't know I think you're old enough to remember back in the 80s, Ford's motto was quality is job one. So they reduced that down to Q1, quality job one. And that is an award that they give to all of their suppliers who maintain trust, a certain level of scorecards, and delivery. Within 8 months of being hired by that company, I did what they could not do in 7 years, and I got that facility awarded Q1.
Wow. Okay.
When I was hired in, I interviewed with the director of North America, and I said, "Sir, I'm not taking this job to be your quality manager. I'm already a quality manager. I'm taking this job to fix your issue and be your next quality director." And he said to me, "Well, let's get this taken care of and we'll talk." So after I delivered on what I promised, I said, "Sir, it's time to talk about that promotion." And he said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, it's just not in the cards right now. We can't do that." And that's when I started looking, and I found my current position as quality director.
Awesome. Wow. What was his response when he knew that you were leaving?
He did not talk to me. There was no communication whatsoever.
Wow. Okay. A little resentment there, or you're good?
I'm good. It's led to the position that I wanted. It's led to the salary that I currently make, which was more than I ever dreamed I would be making. That being said, I now want to make more. It's funny how that happens, but it has left me with a little dilemma, and this is something I'm struggling with right now. My goal from the time I got in quality 20 years ago was to be a quality director. I'm 51 years old and I've reached that goal, and I'm not done. So now I need to figure out what that next goal is going to be. Is it going to be a global VP of quality? Do I move out of quality and go to operations? I don't know yet, but that's something I'm struggling with currently.
You know, the cool thing, that's a cool struggle, right? You got options. Obviously, you know, you could do it. You brought up that mindset earlier. You walking into an interview, you know, you have the job. I feel like you keep that. You said, what do I want to do? It's not like what they're going to give me. What do I want to do? So
Correct.
you can have it. So
Correct.
I think that's really cool. So what's been the most pressure filled moment in your career? It could be career, or it could be life, whatever you want to share.
Wow. I would say back in the Marines. So good friend of mine. I was a, let's call it middle management in the Marine Corps. I was a corporal of the guard. I had 7 Marines that reported directly to me. There was a sergeant of the guard that was directly above me. The sergeant of the guard had 2 corporal of guards, and the building that we guarded was in downtown London. It was about a 45-minute drive from where we lived to the building that we guarded. And the way the rotation worked during the week, you would work a day, you were off a day, and then you would train a day. And then as far as weekend duty, there was 3 guard sections, and you just rotated every third weekend. You would have to work the full weekend. So 48 hours you were in the building, 6 hours on, 6 hours off guarding this building in downtown London, which you would never know what it was, but it was a naval intelligence building,
Okay.
which kind of back to the story I told you. So that young man who was home on recruiter's assistance was doing this job, and that's the whole reason I joined. I ended up getting that job, which the chances of me getting that job that I wanted were very slim.
Wow. Full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah.
But back to the pressure part of it. I had a very good friend of mine. His name was Charles Michael. I will not say his last name, but he was my senior post 7, and he really wanted to stay back in the barracks and guard our armory and ammo storage facility. But selfishly, I said, no, you're coming to the building with me because, Peter, you're the funniest man I've ever met. This is the second funniest man I've ever met. He just had that, where he can make you laugh just by looking at you. He, would tell the funniest stories. He was from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and some of his stories just, I don't know if they were all true or not, but they were hilarious. So selfishly, I wanted him in the building with me all weekend so that I could laugh all weekend and goof off. And we would go up to the room and put a chew in and spit off the roof. And, I chewed back then. But so we were heading downtown that morning. We drove these tiny little vans, and I was in the front seat, and Charles was right behind me, and he tapped me on my arm and said, Foley, you got a pen? And I pulled out my pen and I handed it to him, and he's laughing, he's joking the whole drive down. Again, it's 45 minutes. We get down to the building, and his job was to unlock all the weapons and log the serial numbers into the logbook. While he was doing that, my job was to change out of the suit, put our uniforms on, and then I would go in, he would get dressed, and then I would issue my 7-man guard relief our weapons, based on which one he put in which slot. Shortly after we got to the building, I heard what sounded like somebody slamming a large dictionary onto the floor, and I went into the room. There was a room that separated us and the downtown there was where the weapons were kept was where all of our computer screens were and where the post 7 sat. And so all of our cameras would display on those screens. I went into that room and I found my friend had just shot himself. Nothing prepares you for that. It's not like the movies. He was convulsing. He was sitting up and down. I removed the weapon because it was kind of in his armpit. And then I put my hand on the back of his head to try to stop the bleeding, but there wasn't anything there. It was just gone. So I felt his pulse for as long as I could, screamed for someone to call an ambulance, but he was gone. So that was definitely the most pressure I'd ever felt. I like to think that I was ready for that moment, that the Marines had trained me for that moment, that I was ready to see someone lose their life, but nothing prepares you for that. I had always, growing up, I'd always wanted to be a Michigan State police officer. That was my dream. I don't, everybody wants to be a cop or a fireman, right?
Right.
But I decided to shift career goals after that. I decided I didn't want to have to go to work and see that ever again.
Because of that moment.
Yes.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Eddie. I know that's probably still, I can hear it, that it's probably still hard to kind of remember all that stuff, and not hard because you can't remember, but hard because you still do remember.
There will never be an August 17th that doesn't go by that I don't remember my dear friend and wish he wouldn't have done the most selfish thing that anyone can do. And if anybody's listening to this and is either one struggling with that themselves or is struggling with the aftermath of that, know that you are never going to know the why. You cannot rationalize an irrational act. You're never going to know.
Thanks for saying that. Thanks for saying that, Eddie.
No problem.
I want us to kind of go into the realm of your faith, marriage, being a father. You call yourself a severely flawed Christian. I want you to kind of explain that. And what does faith look like to you?
So I've never found God in a church. I've attended many. The best church service I've ever been a part of was a non-denominational service out in the middle of the desert. It was led by a Navy chaplain, and there was about 25 of us sitting on a rock. And I was just looking around going, this is church. This is what God intended. Not for us to, put on some facade and go to a building and listen to a man who may or may not be a godly man or a woman. And, I've never found God at church. I find God when I'm outdoors in my field, in a tree stand, looking at what he created and listening to the forest come alive. If you're not a hunter, I firmly believe everyone should at least try it once in their life. There's something about it, and I think that's how God intended us to live. I truly do. As far as me being a flawed Christian, I sin daily. I struggle with being the man that I know Christ wants me to be. I am a Christian. I believe that Jesus died for my sins and rose 3 days later, and that one day he's going to come back. And I hope I'm good enough to be one of the ones that make it up there and I get to see all of my family and friends again. But I think we all fall short of God's grace. I think there was only one perfect person, and that was Jesus. I try to remind myself that as much as possible and not beat myself up.
I like that. And I can relate to a lot that you said there. Yeah, I think we all are. Some of us don't admit that we're flawed, but you just said it right there. Only one perfect person, and that's it. And the Bible says that. And the Bible says that we are flawed. And I'm happy to be flawed, but it's working towards that perfection that he wants from us. And we're going to mess up every day. You say you sin every day. We sin every day. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, man. That was strong.
Whether it be in thought or action.
Yep. Exactly. That's my point. It's real. That's real talk. This is why Beyond the Quit's Beyond the Quit, everyone. This is real. What's the biggest thing marriage has taught you about, I don't know, patience and humility? What has marriage taught you with Kim?
Well, being that this is my second marriage, my first marriage failed because we were constantly threatening divorce to each other. More so her to me than the other way around. But, after the 7th or 8th time that she threatened divorce, I said, you know what? You're right. Let's get a divorce. And unfortunately, I'm not proud of that. I didn't want a divorce, but, you can only hear that so many times that it starts to leave a mark. That being said, my second marriage, this is both my wife and mine's second marriage. She was previously married as well, has a beautiful son who I met just before his 3rd birthday. So he doesn't remember a time that Eddie wasn't around. And my wife and I decided early on that we've eliminated the D word from our vocabulary. It's not an option. We are not going to quit each other. No matter what happens. It may mean that I'm going to go sleep on the couch for a couple weeks. It may mean that I may need to go hunt for the week. We may need to get counseling. I'm a big fan of counseling. Having someone listen that has no skin in the game that can say, Kim, he's absolutely right, or Eddie, Kim is absolutely right. You really need to think about this one. Counseling has saved our marriage, and knowing that neither one of us want to be divorced for a second time. We want to live our lives together, and we've accepted each other's flaws, imperfections, and we've grown to love each other for them.
I like it. I like it. That's real too. Nothing's perfect and marriage is hard, but when you love somebody, you love somebody. And I like that you said early in your relationship, you decided that D word would never come in. I mean, I want people to really listen to that. So you guys work. That means that you're going to work through no matter what, work through everything. Thanks for sharing that. What is fatherhood? You bring up CJ, you bring up your son. What has fatherhood taught you that the Marines didn't? Anything?
Wow. Every day. Fatherhood is one thing. You have something I don't. I've never had my own flesh and blood. I call CJ my son. I've never called him my stepson. When I introduce him to people, this is my son. He introduces, well, when he was younger, he introduced me as my Eddy. That's fine. He can call me whatever he wants. I know he loves me. And I love him as he's my own, and I've raised him as he's my own. What has it taught me? That you're never going to be ready. You're going to make mistakes. There's no manual for how to raise them. They're going to come home and there was an old show called Kids Say the Darndest Things with Bill Cosby.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the truth. Some of the things that came out of that boy's mouth when he would come home from school, we tell stories about it to this day. And, I think Kim and I may have, sheltered him a little more than we should have. An example of this, in the 5th grade, they had sex education, and the week of sex education, he learned that there wasn't a Santa Claus, where babies come from, and that the tooth fairy wasn't real. All
Dude,
the same week. It was a very
trifecta?
rough week for that young
Oh
man.
my gosh.
And all this was discussed over the dinner table. So, think about 5th grade. I'm pretty sure I knew all of those things by
You
5th
knew it.
grade. Yeah.
You talk about being a father. So what did teaching discipline and responsibility and manhood look like when you were talking to CJ?
Sure. I think number one, it started with eye contact. CJ had a thing where he would look down, and anytime he met somebody, he would kind of, shake hands and look down. And we spent a lot of time on that. And no, when you meet somebody, you look them in the eye, you make sure you're standing up, and you shake their hand firmly. It's something that I believe in. You never meet someone sitting in a chair. You get up, you shake that hand, and you look that person in the eye with confidence. That was something I instilled. I think something that Kim and I really enforced in raising CJ was honesty. No matter what it is, you can tell us, and watch what you ask for, because sometimes that leads to some things that maybe you're not quite ready to hear.
Right.
But to this day, and way back when, he was the first to tell us. I mean, he told us when he lost his virginity. He told us, we still hear about hookups from time to time. That was very important. We
Right.
wanted him to never feel like he had to go behind us. We're always going to have your back. We may be a little bit upset at the time. We'll get over it, and we'll move on, and we'll talk about it, and we'll learn from it. Most importantly, that was the message that we delivered to him. And I would be willing to bet that's exactly what he would say as well. And I think he felt comfortable in that. And
Yeah.
I think it's very important. Very important. I think too many parents are trying to be their kid's friend
Uh-huh.
and be the cool parent.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to instill a little discipline, set boundaries, let them know right from wrong. It's okay that they don't have the newest iPhone. It can wait. Worry about raising a good, productive member of society that's not going to crumble if somebody says, "Why did you do that?"
Exactly. Me and you are so aligned with that, man, 100%. Each and every way. I totally believe that. And that makes them the individuals they are today, for sure. Parenting. What's something you believe in past tense in your 20s that you don't believe in today?
Well, I think like most people in your 20s, you're, not to get political, but you're maybe more on the left side.
Uh-huh.
I voted for Bill Clinton twice. I think as you get a little older, I think you start moving more towards that center, or maybe to the right a little bit, especially once you start making a little bit of money. You don't want to give it all away to the government. So I think that's something I believed in. I still believe that there's a place for a social safety net. I mean, we've got to have a place where people that just can't earn can go and be able to get money, get food. I told you I grew up poor. My family was on public assistance my entire childhood. We ate government cheese, and I remember government cheese, big block of yellow cheese, very distinctly. I mean, it's really not that bad if we're being honest.
God, melt it up. It's just cheese.
Man, that makes a great grilled cheese.
Absolutely.
Great grilled cheese. But I think I think there needs to be some sort of, if you can work, here's the time you can be on it. That should be used to get you off of it and get you back on your feet. Now, not everybody's going to ever get on their feet. I get that. I totally understand it. But, we're $37 trillion in debt the last time I looked. I don't even know if that's a real number.
Right.
And if anybody can truly decipher what that means, when you look at that debt clock and look at what each one of us owe, I think it was like $253,000 that every taxpayer owes of that 37 trillion. We've got to do something. What that is, I don't know. You can't tax the fix, and we've got to stop spending. We've got to stop sending money overseas to people that don't need it. I think it's just, there's a whole lot of people getting rich on hardworking American taxpayers, and it sickens me.
Thanks for sharing that, man. Yeah. Yeah. Um, what's a personal battle that you're dealing with, if you want to share, that you've had to work through, not you're dealing with, but you've dealt with, and that you've worked through quietly? You don't have to share it, but if you want to, you have the floor, man.
I would say, like I said earlier, I've reached my goal at 51. I've done it maybe earlier than I should have, or maybe I'm doing it later than I should have, and I should have set my goal higher. I don't know.
Right.
But I need to figure out what that next, I realistically, I have 8 to 9 years of working before Kim and I retire. I don't want to have to retire and go get another job. So I need to figure out what that 8, 9 years look like. Am I going to be happy being the director of quality at my current job, or do I need another challenge? And I don't know the answer to that. And I'm kind of struggling with that right now. I'm not somebody that does well being stagnant. I
Right.
need to be challenged. I need to be working towards something. I need to go in every day and look at my whiteboard that says prioritize and execute on it, and write 5 things on that whiteboard. Whatever. I always start with the hardest thing. And I think this was something I meant to say earlier. If you're ever given a choice between 2 things, choose the harder thing. It's almost always right. If you choose and your brain always wants to choose the easiest. Your brain is designed to put you in a state of comfort, and you have to ignore that voice that says, do the easy thing. Always choose the hard thing, no matter what it is. And I would say 90% of the time you will be making the right decision. So when I have those hard tasks that I need to get done, I start with the hardest one first, the one that's going to take the most time. And there's something about crossing that off on my whiteboard that gives me a dopamine drop. I feel good that I knocked that one out. And now I'm on to the second hardest one.
Okay.
And okay, this one's going to be easy because I already knocked out the hard one. And this one's going to be even easier. And then next thing you know, you've knocked out 5 things. And if you can do that every day, man, you're winning. You're winning. Some days you might only get to 3, but then you move those 2 up and, fill out the next 3 that get added and move on.
I like that. I like that. How do you want to be remembered, Eddie? Whether by your family, colleagues, friends, how do you want to be remembered?
Sure. I would say I want to be remembered as somebody that always showed up with the right attitude. Well, not always, but almost all the time showed up with the right attitude, that brought joy to other people's lives, as far as my colleagues, made their lives easier, helped out whenever I could, in whatever capacity I could. My family, I hope my wife remembers me as someone that loves her completely and would do anything for her, and knows that she didn't miss out on somebody else because she chose Eddy Foley. And for CJ, I hope he remembers me as someone that chose to be his dad and loved him completely with all of my heart, will do anything for him.
Damn, I know I keep on saying love it, but I absolutely love it, dude. You're hitting me, man. I like that. What would you say to 18-year-old Eddie today, right after the scholarship was pulled?
Whew, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to be okay. And you got this. Be confident, and don't let anybody ever tell you no.
Did you prepare this? These are great.
That one just came to me. I wasn't ready for that one.
That was good. So give me something that people misunderstand about being persistent and toughness. Give me something that people misunderstand about that.
I think they think it means doing more than what you need to. Consistency is simple. Get up every day, do those little things. Again, those things that don't require any talent whatsoever. Be the first person in the office, right? That means something. When they see you there, when my CEO shows up and sees my truck in the parking lot and my office light on, and he walks by and says, "Good morning, Eddie. Good morning, sir." Right? That leaves something, right? And those times when you might need to leave early, let's say you've got an appointment or you've got a family event that you need to get to, It's really easy to say, sir, I got to leave a little early. Oh, yeah, no problem. You're the first person in the office. You don't have to tell me that. Go do what you got to do, right? And get those things done. If you're getting your job done, how's somebody going to say, well, you're leaving early? There's no such thing as leaving early if you're getting your job done, and that's consistency. You get to consistency through persistence, get up every morning, go for that walk, either in the morning or when you get home. I'm more of a workout when I get home guy. I'm not a morning person, despite the fact that I try to be the first person in the office every day. I'm not. I get beat, and that makes me get up a little bit earlier the next day. But I come home. I like to go for a walk. I like to sit in my sauna. We converted our gym into a home gym, so I
Nice.
don't work out as much as I probably should. But I try to do it. I think it's important. Once you get to a certain age, I don't know that I'm ever going to look like Mr. Hogbook, but to do those resistance exercises and
Uh-huh.
not just keep your mind sharp, but keep your body sharp. I want to have a quality retirement that my wife and I can enjoy each other and enjoy life, not just, wasted my best years working. I want to look at the years that I spent working as building this nest egg for me to go enjoy that second or third, let's call it the third quarter of my life,
Third quarter. I like it. Yeah, I think that's very
or
important. You
third
know how I
period,
feel about that. What?
or third period. I guess it
Third
would be
period.
third quarter,
I
third
like
period.
quarter. We can talk
Yeah.
football or we can talk basketball,
All
whatever.
right.
So, two more questions. I have two more questions for you. So, what separates those that quit to those that keep fighting? Give me a couple things or one thing that you feel like this person has this trait. This is why they're doing this. And same thing for the opposite.
Thinking back to 18-year-old Foley who had a lot of quit in his body and in his mind, I think it was fear. I think
Mm,
you have fear of failure, which makes you scared to start. Or if I do that, what if I fail? It's okay to fail. You know what? Anytime something happens at work where one of my guys come up to me and say, Eddie, I got some really bad news. This happens. I'm going to steal a quote from Jocko Willink. I always say good. And they give me this funny look every time. What do you mean good? Well, good. We're going to learn from this and we're going to get better, right? It's not the end of the world. Nobody died today. We just shipped some bad parts to the customer and we're going to call, let them know what happened, and here's how we're going to fix it. So I think having that attitude of, make it so your people aren't scared to fail, right? Look at failure as a good thing and an opportunity to learn if you're truly using it as a learning opportunity.
for sure. For sure. I always start my podcast with the same first question and the same last question. So, my last question to you, Eddie, is what does beyond the quit mean to you?
No options mentality. That's how I live my life now. I have no other option than to go to work and be successful. I think again, it goes back to your brain is designed to keep you comfortable, and it will always choose the easier path or quitting if you give it that option. So don't give it the options. There are no options. Go to work, be successful, work hard, love your family, be the best version that you can be of you today. And if you fell short today, be better tomorrow.
I got nothing else to say. Thank you for that, Eddie. Thank you for your time. You're a true brother of mine. You know that. I appreciate this conversation. There's some things I didn't even know about you. Wow, that's really resonating. I'm gonna dissect that. Um, but thanks
We
again.
got deep.
Yeah, brother.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled and honored that you chose me to be on your podcast.
Absolutely.
I love you.
Yeah.
Can't
Love you
wait
too.
to see you in person.
Yes, absolutely. We got to set that up. Okay.
Can't wait.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.